Do not test this at home if you do not have great knowledge of psychedelics or a wiser mind than me. Thoughts? How far can you go? How far can you get? Is there any truth hidden from us in the hallucinogens that I have not yet reached? What happens if you mix different psychs at the same time? I wanted these answers, where I wanted to search for the answers on my own, in my heart. I had long planned a mega trip. The years go by but the timing had not felt right, had argued with myself back and forth what I would take, how much I would take, how I would take it and when I would take it. I had taken crazy trips before with a very positive outcome where I have often been very shaken and never really become myself again. Trips can change your life and increase your perspective and change your outlook on life. Maybe that's why I have had an inner longing and curiosity in me since my first trip, a lot of years ago, which never really seemed to pass, and over the years I have pondered how far to go. Had I not taken enough the other times? Or had I taken enough and received my final answers? Had I already met God as he should be perceived, without myself perceiving it? Or had the years made me forget and left only vague memories of the events? My fascination and wonder about life, the universe and its mystery had not immediately subsided after all the trips. It was rather the opposite. Of course I had tripped the last few years, but it had been under controlled forms with normal doses without either ego death or major ego split. I had stayed at level 3 for almost 4 years. But a longing can turn away reason and a lack can overcome all doubts, and to experience the eternal light of paradise sometimes requires a crazy mind. In other words, this day was inevitable. I had opted out of DMT at the time when I was looking for a longer intoxication. Of course it felt tempting to both inject DMT and mix DMT with other substances. I had not given up the idea, but so far I thought I would choose another route, DMT's little brother, DPT. Apart from being one of my absolute favorite tryptamines, it also has many similarities with DMT. Have also read that you can get as far and meet the same entities on DPT as on DMT. It's just about the right dosage and a large portion of courage, so why not investigate the matter further? On the other hand, DPT has about 25 times longer rust time than DMT, so the most hard-skinned have undoubtedly time to shag. Something that also felt incredibly tempting was to mix DPT with another tryptamine that I am very fond of, 4-AcO-DMT. They are very compatible with each other. I had done it before and it is magical. Injecting a tryptamine is said to be extreme in itself, so why not take a tryptamine virgin dose with just these two? Another idea that has haunted me for a long time is to mix mushrooms with DPT. I would personally say that 4-AcO-DMT is more colorful and more stimulating, but then if you takes it by the nose, to take it 4 must be stronger anyway. I had after careful consideration decided on an extreme dose of mushrooms first, then somehow inject DPT plus 4-AcO-DMT in the same syringe. I did not want to go away from tryptamines as they feel relatively safe physically and that I got the most out of these substances. Also did not want to mix in several different tryptamines, other hallucinogens or dissociative substances if it could lose its sharpness in intoxication. Nor did I want to take MDMA in combination, like a sick hippie trip. Partly it hardly feels safe, partly I do not need MDMA with a perfect mix of tryptamines. Will experience a final euphoria anyway. Did not want to swamp this chance that does not occur so often, so mushrooms plus a hefty strainer felt like the obvious choice. I had read in very reliable places about the different maximum limits of the substances at different modes of ingestion, the mixtures between them, possible deaths or other unpleasant things that can occur at high doses, and discussed the matter with some psychonauts I trusted, so the result was as follows. Substance, dipropyltryptamine, DPT, 4-AcO-DMT and fungus ring smoothing. Dosage, 170 mg DPT, 60 mg 4-AcO-DMT, and 25 grams fungus. Method of ingestion, intravenously. The fungus was taken orally. Rust time, 4 hours plus. Set and setting. Rigorous preparations were my hallmark. My sitter and I had chosen the date several weeks in advance for day D. My sitter and we had known each other for long, but it was 4 years since he started to get interested in psychedelics, and I helped him obviously to strengthen his new interest. We had taken a few trips together, but he had so far been content with normal trips. He was a doctor by profession, so he felt like the optimal sitter. I just realized that he was a psychologist too, so he could guide me right afterwards. But you could not get everything. It was not the mental part I was really nervous about, but it physical. We had chosen a Saturday night, mostly because it felt wise to have a day off after tripping. We had also disconnected all technology in the house. I was rested and had eaten a light breakfast alone. Had walked like in a haze all day waiting for the clock to strike 7. The day felt like a mixture between writing an important exam and Christmas Eve appearing, i.e. both nervousness and longing at the same time. I felt ready and focused. I had reduced my resting heart rate to around 40 beats per minute due to a lot of running training recently. DPT is a real heart rate booster, so it felt natural to try to minimize this as much as I could. Had also tried to meditate without much success. Instead I had yoga extra much to get in the right mindset. It was closer to 8 o'clock, me and the sitter were chatting and I was ready to eat the awful amount of mushrooms in a first step. The sitters had placed a venous catheter and vena cephalica on the upper side of my left hand. This was due to two things: partly it was much easier to get the tryptamines that way under strong influence of fungus, partly for any mishaps and the trip for some reason had to interrupt, seizures, extreme tachycardia, rapid pulse, extreme hypertension, high blood pressure, or psychosis. For this we had solid injection liquid and our own mixture of Victorvil in already finished syringes which are just connected in the venous catheter and injected. To stick someone under, for example, psychosis usually happens muscularly, which of course is understandable. I felt that I did not want to be stabbed under impact and that intravenously would have an effect much faster in both situations. I also had a heart rate monitor placed on the corresponding wrist. I felt a bit like a guinea pig. However, I felt that I was in safe hands. The sitter radiates calm. But despite our preparations, the experiment could face some difficulties. The first was to want to ingest an awful lot of drugs straight into the blood under already strong influence. No matter how much you want something sober, it does not mean that the actions are as you intended. Fungi have a tendency to break the rational pattern quite roughly, so it was important to take the remaining tryptamines on time, not too late and not too early. Too late could mean some difficulties for my sitter to persuade me to what I really wanted. Most normal people are more than happy with 25 grams mushrooms. However, it is hardly a fun stage to be in. Believe me, I had tried 25 grams mushrooms before. It is very difficult to handle. I did not want it too early either, as I wanted them to interact with each other. Secondly, one does not lie directly still on my chosen substances and amounts. I had once filmed when I took 200 mg DPT plus 100 mg 4-AcO-DMT nasally, and it is a very shaky journey. I behaved like a leaking centrifuge in the bed, sweats and behaved like an obsessed, as if a being has taken over my body. This in itself could make the most experienced sitter feel some hesitation, and then to get the syringe in the hand of someone who seems to have had epilepsy must be difficult enough for the unaccustomed. We had therefore chosen to put the needle in the hand and not in the armpit. Third was to stay alive. I was not very nervous for the next moment. Even though his heart rate had increased slightly, I had significantly higher demands than him to cancel the trip, but of course he is a doctor after all. How I even got him on this sometimes feels like a miracle. If we play with the idea that I would die, how the hell would he explain this? Should he lose his job? Probably. On the other hand, benzodiazepines are real trip killers and would get me back in no time. The ones chosen were also very muscle relaxing, so I felt safe, but the feeling of tragic comedy remained. I had great respect for hallucinogens. I had also been completely sober for several months for the greatest possible effect of both the hallucinogens and alternatively the benzodiazepines. I had switched from classical music, which I first thought would get me in the right mindset, to music I recognized and enjoyed in everyday contexts, all to be as down to earth as possible into the last and avoid a sloping trip. It felt good. We drive, I said to my very own family doctor. He did some tests on me, mostly for that matter. You seem ready, he said, so drive when you feel like it. How ready one can now be in this precarious situation. Puts the phone in silent position and places it on a shelf, locks the front door and pulls down the blinds in my bedroom, where the bed would later function as my trip incubator. Intake. I first swallowed 200 grams of fresh mushrooms, which in the dried state corresponds to about 20 grams. Then I swallowed another 5 grams of dried mushrooms, all with the help of water and yogurt. I skipped the extraction with lemon and to make a tea on them, which otherwise usually results in a stronger and faster absorption. I was not in a hurry, and with my chosen amount it did not matter, it would give extreme effect anyway, and that fresh mushrooms are stronger than dried, as it also contains the hallucinogenic substance psilocin, which oxidizes when dried. I had a naturally high tolerance for psilocybin, which sometimes required double the dose compared to others, so this time I would not be disappointed. But with that said, maybe the fungus would not have any significance at all on the whole. For example, I had advised myself not to skip the cannabis as I had a hard time believing that it would have any effect in the long run. Rather the opposite, and make me anxious unnecessarily before the trip. Mushrooms on the other hand are much more powerful, so laying it as a foundation felt appealing. The clock showed 2010 when my culinary evening meal was over and it had exceeded expectations. Have never disliked eating mushrooms, just feels natural and very hippie. Calm music was played in the background and as in a mutual agreement, me and the sitter did not talk much with each other anymore. There was a serious spread in the room where we were with a lot of lit candles and incense that would calm down. I just tried to keep my calm and focus up. My body used to take the time to pick up the mushroom, but I was amazed at how fast it seemed to go this time. Maybe it was so long since I last took fresh mushrooms that I forgot how it was, or I had fasted better this time. The first effects crept in already after 20 minutes. I started to turn on the sofa, the skin felt warm and sweaty and funny thoughts began to appear. The room felt sterile and bright colors began to give off a stronger glow than usual. It is also easier to distinguish contours around paintings and windows. Some hesitation begins to grow in the chest as it always does at the rise of fungus. Mushrooms tend to be very honest and ruthless in nature. Like it's talking to me and saying, "Well, are you here again? Who do you think you are? Are you really ready to see what I have to show you?" And the snap on the nose makes my ego, which I had built up since the last time, slowly retreat. I almost feel guilty that I did not live by its principle and my mental age slowly drops. It is not a game to take mushrooms, but at the same time there is nothing that has given me as much insight as the mushroom. Give and take. Give me your ego and you'll get wisdom back. The clock shows 20:45, over half an hour since ingestion. I go to the kitchen to get a glass of water. I feel nauseous and a feeling that I am getting sick sweeps over me. I drink the water with a resorb, as if it would help me from the path I have chosen. I also pee one last time before leaving. 21:30. I am slowly starting to lose touch with what the hell we are doing. Begins to feel slightly bothered about the needle in the hand, which certainly sits with double surgical tape around the entire hand, but still. I have a hard time grasping my thoughts and start to find it hard to have another person around me. I usually trip alone when it comes to ego resolutions. The foil hat tightens harder around my head and I start to distrust my own mind. I get no order in my thoughts that constantly take different paths than what I am used to and constantly encounter new crossroads. Level 3 is past and heavy hallucinations surround me. Every detail in the room breathes with extreme depth, colors and patterns seem to go into each other as a unit. Even the music starts to feel distant and foreign. We have to do it. I can no longer wait, I say in an unsteady voice. And before I lose my mind. Event horizon. Puts me in my large double bed where it is sparsely lit. The clock has passed 9:30 when mine is sitting, placing the syringe in the venous catheter and slowly pushing in the solution. I try to keep my eyes open and the last thing I hear is Bob Marley's voice from the speakers in full swing singing One Love. Feels appropriate in some way, and my sitter says, "It went well, everything is in, good luck." 1 to 2 seconds. The solution is in my bloodstream, the seconds seem to go slower than normal, waiting for some kind of kick, like a desire to get a little bonus in their crazy experiment. 3 to 4 seconds. Tongue and throat begin to numb and a metallic taste appears in the mouth. The body is filled with heat. 5 to 10 seconds. Considering that I am already under strong influence, the whole situation does not seem real, but the extreme body load is for real. My body feels so extremely heavy that it apparently sinks through the bed further through the floor and into space. I try to move me but without response. My pulse is racing at high speed and I get a feeling of deja vu. 11 to 15 seconds. Mentally, I start to lose it completely. I feel like I got all the psychoses and mental illnesses at the same time. But it is only afterwards that I am filled with an understanding of these. I keep my eyes open and while the world rages before my eyes, every detail, every line in the whole room lights up with the whole color spectrum. Paintings and windows breathe so heavily that they do not seem to have any bottom. 15 to 30 seconds. It starts to get intense in feeling and speed. Cosmos feeds me with its spectacle, colors, patterns and symbols that I have rarely seen. It's so beautiful, so crazy beautiful, that I cannot focus on either thoughts or feelings. I can no longer distinguish where the walls and ceiling begin or end and the whole room seems to go in circular waves at the same time. It feels like electric shocks go through the body. 30 to 60 seconds. Here somewhere I dissolve and become one with the universe. My cognitive and emotional self is erased and I can no longer grasp that it is drugs that put me in this state. I am transformed into a total ego dissolution where the self is dead. No earth, no people, memories or thoughts exist in me. I can only go on this insane journey without breaks. The universe steers me like a puppet without will. 1 minute to 4 hours. The feeling is now extremely intense. I can no longer determine if my eyes are open or closed, so talking about open eye visuals or close eye visual feels unprofitable. However, I would think I close them, which is usually normal in this situation. The hallucinations that appear in front of me are extremely dynamic. Geometric and complex patterns grow and form, and I feel its intelligence and see its aesthetic essence that pleases me fully with its existence. Tunnels upon tunnels create several tunnels out of nothing of the purest gold and form large advanced structures. Everything pulsates and sparkles, and after each pulse something new is created in the tunnels, changing from gold to mosaic in all its colors and in different patterns. Pyramids are built up of green laser in front of my field of vision with abstract symbols in it. It's like they are talking to me. Look. Understand. I read them into my brain with such mystery and authority that if I had a body it would react with a strong shudder, and my reverence and respect is total. The world appears between laps, completely digital and sometimes completely optical, but does not lack pace and harmony. Sometimes it feels like I live inside a huge hologram where the mystery of the whole world is displayed. Time cannot be understood, it is either paused or dissolved. It is impossible to grasp the concept upside down, and in my brain a new dimension has been revealed. Networks of time and space move like waves in the universe at the same time as all my senses are dissolved and merged into one, where feeling and sight seem to work in harmony. Everything is so incomprehensibly fascinating, and I seem to see the world as it really is for the first time. The drugs I have taken appear in symbiosis, and I cannot distinguish which drug contributes to what. Total security emerges. I float inside a transparent diamond where it feels like I only consist of love. All love. I contain every single positive and pure thought. All people's joy and feelings of happiness are in my body and have been distributed equally to every atom. It feels like every mood-boosting drug has been injected at one and the same time into my body, and that I have eaten several hundred ecstasy tablets in parallel as the body vibrates in several thousand orgasms at the same time, but that it is still not enough to describe the feeling. This ecstasy is so overwhelming that it does not resemble anything else I have experienced. Electricity of satisfaction is sent time and time again through my body, and this is without a doubt the most powerful euphoria I have ever felt. It feels here and there like a million times stronger than the second best euphoric experience I have been through. It beats all the kicks I have felt after I injected various drugs, all the heavier candy flips and hippie flips I was exposed to, and all the other psychedelic experiments where the euphoria was central. I am in the epicenter of climax, and I keep asking myself how it is even possible for the brain to produce this? I have both fallen into the rabbit hole, swallowed 100 of Morpheus red pills, and traveled to the celestial body Pandora in Avatar while I sat on Frodo's ring. The intensity of the trip is so extreme that it is in the context of injecting amphetamine while I take 10 flares of DMT with salvia and parachute while I trip on 1,500 micrograms of acid. All my thoughts I ever thought, all my actions and all my mistakes I ever made, and all my prejudices I felt are processed into my soul and forgiven. And God examines and understands me. I feel guilty, but He clears my conscience, and it feels like the ultimate confession. I'm so naked of all the people I've ever hurt, all the people I've ever met, and it feels like all 7 billion people are looking at me where I seem to be the center of the universe. I can no longer hide anything, not for myself and not for anyone else. And despite everyone's differences, we understand each other and feel a strong compassion and belonging. Singularity. Even though everything before felt completely insane and very difficult to describe, it stands nothing against this. It would be easier to describe the starry sky or colors for a blind person, but I will try. It is very suggestive to say that this was God, but I have no evidence for it except my own experienced experience. One can also claim that it is a strong imagination produced by my brain as a result of the magical elixir of life that I have ingested. In any case, it remains my greatest experience to date, and it may feel sad for someone who has not had the desired effect of hallucinogens or even tested drugs to say that an intoxication would be the ultimate. But my impression was genuine, regardless of whether I was under the influence or not. It happened, and who can say what an encounter with God should look like? It can be very subjective. It is also close at hand to talk about God so that the affect of history does not disappear or diminish in any way, as it is by far the strongest experience I have had, sober and sober. Describing the real feeling in words is impossible, it must be experienced, and writing this becomes a bit like explaining to a child what adult values really mean, and even if the child would almost understand, it would be impossible for the child to pass on to other children what the adult talk was about. It is almost as if our brains are not yet designed or developed to understand all the answers, but the hallucinogens allow us for a brief moment to see something that we cannot do without its help. I travel further in this bizarre spectacle. The internal orgasms are still just as progressive and the fractal El Dorado just as dynamic. It feels like I am traveling with extreme g-force, and inside my chest a huge bass pumps out its sound waves in me with complete frenzy. I cannot determine if I am dead or alive or both at the same time. The feelings oscillate between a melancholy feeling of emptiness and a feeling of strong belonging to the rest of the cosmos. A life after death does not seem impossible, and I have no idea where I am. The determinism I have always been in gradually turns into my own will, like being in an abstract lucid dream where I seem to control the course of events. I'm back in bed, looking down at myself in the third person where I lie still in the dark, and the next second I ride the roller coaster down to my ancestors in a straight descending line. First my parents, then my view passes every single ancestor I ever had all the way down to the last Homo sapiens and further past the last Neanderthal to the very spark of life, and I get an understanding of the fate of all people and how everything really is connected. The Earth, the Sun and the whole solar system return to what it once was in the beginning, and the dark energy releases its grip on gravity and expansion, and all galaxies are compressed into a single point. Total regression of the whole creation is played out in front of my field of vision, and I can only feel a gratitude and humility so strong that the tears would have flowed along my cheeks if I had any. All matter is at a point as small as an electron. The small electron seems to balance on an invisible knife edge where chance seems to play a decisive role in how the course of events should be. Either it falls down on one side where the eternal darkness looms, or it falls down and passes into creation the moment with Big Bang as a result. Being on the verge of creation feels terrible and the uncertainty is total. Then something happens that I did not think could happen. I am not particularly religious by myself, but this cannot be described in any other way than either contact with God or extremely intelligent and advanced beings. An energy and power many times stronger than myself and my mind is revealed, not only within me but also around me, in me, yes, everywhere at the same time, and my capitulation is complete and the affection unconditional. I am no longer a spectator of paradise, but my soul is part of the whole utopia. The situation feels so real and sacred that reality itself fades. Basic things like drinking a glass of water, loving, or singing feels like a billion times less real. The magnitude of what happened would long afterwards be my own faith and reality. But it does not end there. God allows me to create, and I seem to both control my visual effects and transform into whoever I want, any living thing with the help of thinking power. I feel like a child whose parents let one discover the world for the first time. God allows me to experience the future where you can no longer see the difference. Technology and biology have been united and artificial intelligence was born a long time ago. Telepathy, telekinesis and other metaphysics are quite frequent in the new landscape I am in. God shows me civilizations more intelligent and developed than I have ever imagined, and I get to explore different types of societies throughout the cosmos. I get to see creation the moment recreated time and time again, and also get to feel a part of it and can fall down and become what I want. That we are created from the same thing and from the same matter becomes more obvious than before, especially when you have to create with the help of particles. The quantum mechanical short circuit that was once perhaps the reason why we exist seems like a beginning, where something was created out of nothing, and even under the extreme influence of hallucinogens, my brain can reach no longer than that, no matter how damn enlightened I seem to be. And although nature can come with surprises that go far beyond what the human imagination can achieve, the whole creation appears with such elegance and with such mathematical obviousness that I sometimes doubt that it was not actually predetermined. The regression. The first sign that I'm alive is the ringing in my head, and I immediately grasp what we feel used to. Men in white coats stand bent over me. Damn, I'm stuck in some psychosis. The drugs might have put it in my head this time. Water. Water over the face. They're trying to drown me. What are you doing? I'm trying to figure out. Help me, I beg. I feel so destitute. So naked. So alone. After minutes that feel like eternity, the context slowly begins to fall into place. It's my sitter bathing my forehead and face with a wet towel. His soft voice does not frighten me, I just feel indifferent. So many thoughts spin in my head that I do not know where to start. The gratitude for watching over me comes only later. I have woken up to a new world and do not believe in the old one anymore. My moral compass has been corrected again, and I question our whole existence and our activities here on Earth. It feels like I've got a new set of DNA and I feel like a new human while the old one remains. We spent a few hours smoking cannabis, too blissful to be tired. The cannabis keeps me in the trippy state feeling, much is forgotten already the days afterwards. After months, there is only vague memory left and a feeling that I have experienced something big, so it is important to be quick to preserve the memory. The DPT goes out pretty quickly, but the sponge stays for another hour or so, like a tough afterglow, which is certainly quite comfortable, but I am so emptied inside that it didn't really matter. I stay standing on the floor, just such a thing to stand, and the fact that there is actually a floor under me that does not move makes me almost burst in gratitude. The strong feeling of being a part of the universe's mechanical clockwork sits for a long time to come, and I reflect on our short time we live here on Earth and how everything is connected and how damn sick it really is that everything is connected just like it is. At the same time as I feel and understand what a balanced and beautiful world can look like, the insight almost makes me start to cry. The answers are in front of our noses, but we do not want to understand, do not dare to test, and are too afraid of the unknown. The truth becomes so simple, at the same time so difficult to convey to others, that war, famine and injustice exist seem completely incomprehensible after a trip of this dignity. I also feel terribly privileged over my own existence. I got what I was hoping for from the trip and a little more. I am still relatively shaken by the extent of the incident, and I also feel done with drugs for a long time to come. I would not repeat the experiment with just these substances, especially not for, if you are to inject these substances, then it is recommended to bisect / half the nasal dose. I had gone a good bit over what is recommended for a strong dose of all substances. I had also mixed 3 substances to the max. I lived, but the body afterwards was completely finished, was completely exhausted both physically and mentally, and had sweated copious amounts. Have a feeling that I was lying balanced on the verge of blackout, but I will probably never know. However, the body was completely restored after a good night's sleep and food. Psychonaut over and out.